How does a speaker the price of a house sound different to a speaker I use at home?
This is coming out of the Wilson Chronasonic XVX, whereas this is coming out of the Sonos Era 300.
So how and why would someone spend such an insane amount of money? Let's find out.
I asked Chris Haslam, Wired's audio expert, to give me some steer on what we should be listening to, and he suggested piano music. The piano is one of the most difficult instruments to reproduce in a recording. Listening to that music on the Sonos is a very pleasant experience. But listening to Clair de Lune on the Wilson speakers was an emotional experience. It wasn't just bits in that music that I haven't heard properly before, but it's the spaces in the song, the absence of sound, the weight of the keys. You can feel the difference to it. It has a physical response almost.
You need a lot of detail to create this kind of rich and textured sound, and the Chronasonic uses very large, powerful components to pump this out.
First thing you notice is this thing, it's huge, it's over 6 feet tall.
Each speaker is a super tower of 7 drivers stacked on top of each other. The more drivers, the more detail you can hear.
Most people think these are speakers. What they're actually called are drivers. The whole thing is the speaker.
The most crucial part of any speaker is the driver. This is the part of the speaker that turns audio signals into sound waves.
We've got 12-inch and a 10-inch bass drivers here, a tweeter here, the high range, as the name implies, and you've got mid-range drivers either side of it, 3 of those there. And you've also got a upward firing tweeter rear at the back here to give you sort of spatial sound, as it were, or broaden out the sound. You might expect the tweeter to be at the top of the driver array, but it doesn't actually matter where it is, as long as the tweeter is pointing towards your ear level. Your brain can determine much better where the higher frequencies are coming from, so they need to be directed at you.
Higher frequencies have shorter wavelengths with sharper curves, which makes it easier for our ears to locate them. While high frequencies are like a flashlight, low frequencies are like a glow, spreading out and making it harder to pinpoint the source.
Which is why so often with subwoofers you can put them anywhere in a room. But these speakers need to be pointing at your head.
Many home speakers, like the Sonos Eras, all squeeze drivers into one box or bar.
What's clever about the Sonos is the amount of stuff they've managed to squeeze into this tiny package. So you've got a center driver, 2 side drivers, you've got an upward firing tweeter, and you've got 2 woofers, as well as a computer, amplifier, and everything you need to run this speaker within this housing. And the difference here is that these Wilson speakers are passive. They've got no power in them at all. They need to have separate amplifiers, a preamp, and enormous amounts of other equipment and huge cables just to make them work. Yes, the speakers cost $370,000, but you're going to be spending probably north of $1 million with everything else you need to make these run.
This makes the Sonos far more convenient to set up. While it's still a premium speaker for most budgets, it doesn't cover nearly as much detail or frequency range as the Wilson.
When you're talking about frequency, imagine that as a rainbow spectrum. The sound rainbow coming from the Wilson is much brighter and much wider than the rainbow coming from the Sonos. This speaker can only play 41 Hz to 16 kHz, whereas this one has a frequency range of 20 Hz to 30 kHz, which is beyond the range of human hearing. It's got more detail than you can possibly hear.
So what's the point? Take a cymbal crash. Humans can't hear the highest frequency of the crash, but what you can hear will sound more realistic and vibrant with a wider frequency range. It's a bit like a high-resolution camera, capturing details you might not notice, but make the overall picture sharper.
Okay, so we're going to try going down to 20 Hz. You won't be able to hear it because it won't work on your speakers. Our microphones won't pick up something so low either, but you'll see it. Let's have a look. See how it's moving that paper?
Low frequencies produce powerful sound waves with larger amplitudes. This causes physical vibrations moving lightweight objects like paper. It's quite a deep, unsettling noise, which you don't want to be around for too long. If you play the same frequency, 20 Hz, on the Sonos, you can't hear a thing because it doesn't go down that low. But low frequencies can also create bad kinds of vibration. Have you ever played a low frequency through bad speakers? You'll notice a rattle and a clicking in the casing as soon as you play anything with bass. Vibration is the enemy of speakers. You only want to hear the vibrations coming from the drivers themselves. Heavy casing dampens and absorbs excess vibrations made within the driver. The bass drivers are made of a trade secret material that is so dense it can stop this distortion. It's got aerospace grade aluminium architecture here on the side for the driver array at the top. It is very heavy and very, very solid. No vibration, but as inert as it possibly can be. So all you're hearing is the vibrations of the music and nothing else. And what's the unique selling point of these drivers? The accuracy. With tiny adjustments to the back, the music hits your ears in perfect sync. Here at the back, there is a micro adjustment, a time alignment system that is capable of adjusting the time at which the sound from these drivers hits your ears within a measurement of 2 millionths of a second. A tiny change that the average human ear wouldn't even be able to notice. The idea here is that Wilson wants your hearing to be the limit, not the technology. The whole point of the Chronosonic is that you need to sit in one spot in the room. That's because all the drivers are angled to hit your ears at precisely the right time. If one tiny thing goes out of kilter, even by a fraction, the illusion is destroyed. So it should sound radically different as you move around. The Wilson, you can definitely hear how the sound changes, especially when you get into the middle here, where you get into that sweet spot that the speakers are being directed towards. And when you move out of it, you can hear that the balance of everything is out of kilter. When you get in the right zone, that's when everything starts to make sense. Imagine some flashlights pointing at a painting. A slight tweak in direction, and you'd still be able to enjoy the painting, just less vividly. But with the Sonos, the whole gallery is already lit. Just as you manipulate the pixels on Photoshop, digital signal processing, or DSP, manipulates digital signals to enhance audio. That digital jiggery-pokery, that DSP, is working its magic. So it's creating a soundscape that is trying to be uniform no matter where you are in the room. And it actually does manage to do that to a very convincing degree, especially considering it's all coming from one unit. But you do notice, obviously, a difference in sound quality. But it's difficult to hear a change in that sound quality as you go about the room. Completely different to the Wilson. And ultimately, all the money that's gone into the Chronosonic is there to make you feel something. So having listened to these two systems side by side, the Sonos is an all-in-one system that's plug and play, and there's an enormous number of compromises here. But it's really easy and the standard is good. It's what everyone really wants if you want a hassle-free life. The Wilson speaker, it is enormously complicated to set up, unbelievably expensive to run, but the sound difference you get, the emotional response you get, is another level. But the $400,000 question is, can speakers that cost the same as a house in Colorado Springs ever be worth it? In short, if you love, and I mean love music, and you have the means, then these open up an audio world you simply never knew existed. It's like trying Japanese Kobe steak when you've spent your entire life eating In-N-Out burgers. And the price for such an experience is always going to be high, almost unbelievably high compared to the perfectly fine Sonos. But however capable Sonos is, it just plays music for you. Astonishingly, the Wilsons changed the very way you feel about sound, and that's so